This weekend, I saw Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and all I can say is I was very disappointed in this film. I know, surprise, surprise, I didn't like a movie. There's a very simple reason why I did not like this movie. It's a movie about Kung Fu, and it didn't have any good Kung Fu in it. Now, I had very high hopes for this movie, and I wanted to see some awesome Kung Fu fight scenes with real stuntmen and women performing real stunts on real sets. Instead, I got about a minute and a half of genuine kung fu fighting, followed by nothing but computer-generated stunt doubles waving glowing computer-generated weapons in the dark on CG sets. Now, Shang-Chi, the character, is supposed to be the master of kung fu. At least that's what I've heard. I don't know jack about this character. And this movie should have had the best hand-to-hand combat scenes in any Marvel movie. However, there was only one fight scene in this movie that I liked, and they show it in the trailer. It's the part where Shang-Chi gets into that dagger fight with that kabuki assassin guy. What a total waste of a character, by the way. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And that scene only lasted about 20 seconds, and when it ended, I wanted to stand up in the theater and shout, "Why did you stop that fight?" This movie was just really boring for me, not just because of the poorly conceived action scenes, but because of just how much exposition this movie has. No joke, there must have been an hour and a half of exposition where someone shows a mural and they tell about how for 1,000 years our people have given thousands of lives to prevent 1,000 years of darkness brought on by 1,000 demon nations and blah, blah, blah. This movie also was just not funny at all. The dialogue tried so hard to be cute and snarky, and I think I laughed twice in this whole movie, and that was thanks to a pretty funny cameo by an unexpected MCU character. I cannot emphasize enough just how saturated this movie was with CGI, and that just frustrated me. This should have been the Marvel film with the least amount of CGI and the best action scenes. However, Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Captain America Civil War retain their titles as having the best action scenes in all of the MCU films, and that's because they used practical effects. In Civil War, when Crossbones faces off against Captain America, he gets a real mounted grenade launcher on a real armored vehicle, and there is a real explosion, and a real building blows up, and a real stuntman goes flying through the air and smashes into a real car windshield. When Black Panther faces off against the Winter Soldier, and he's actually kicking the guy, and they jump off the rooftops, and yeah, they're on wires, but at least it's not on a green screen. When Sam, Steve, and Black Widow get thrown out of their car by the Winter Soldier in the Winter Soldier movie, they got real stunt people to actually jump out of a car and roll around on the pavement. I kid you not, the famous bus fight scene in Shang-Chi that people are raving about had a computer-generated bus driving down the roads of San Francisco. When Shang-Chi gets thrown out of the bus window and he catches himself and jumps on the roof, the entire environment is green screen. When he's being chased by the ninjas on the scaffolding in the high-rise building, and in utter darkness, by the way, everything is CG. Like, he seriously kicks a plank of wood up into a guy's face, Jackie Chan style, and the plank of wood that he kicks up is computer-generated, and the guy who gets hit in the face is a computer-generated character, and he falls to his computer-generated death. They have another car chase scene out of an underground tunnel, and the good guys press a button that shuts down a giant metal door, and the metal door crushes the front of the bad guy's car behind them, and only guess what? It was a CG car. They got crushed by a CG door. I mean, who wants to see that? Who wants to, why couldn't you crash an actual car? Maybe I'm just spoiled because I spent the last couple of months binge watching old Jackie Chan movies like Police Story and Project A, and when you see Jackie Chan actually hanging on the side of a real bus with cars driving under him in the opposite direction, and then seeing real people getting tossed from a movie bus onto the asphalt, it just feels silly to watch them attempt to do the same thing in Shang-Chi using green screens and computer effects. And not only was there too much CGI, but all of the CGI looked really cheap. Those 10 rings that the Mandarin uses, they just were so poorly animated, and I just don't know why they did that. The rings had kind of an action camera stop motion animation look to them, and it just looked so weird seeing people move around in regular fluid motion and then having these rings floating around in like stop motion animation. You know, some people have been comparing the rings to the Sonic the Hedgehog rings, and they don't look too much different, honestly, from like the Sega Dreamcast version of Sonic the Hedgehog. A large portion of this film takes place in a fantasy world with a lot of silly looking creatures and dragons and demons, and I didn't want to see any of that in a kung fu movie. Now, based on the reviews and based on how much money this movie made over the weekend, a lot of people really like this movie, and that's fine if you enjoyed it. And I admit, like, I had very different expectations than I imagine a lot of other people did going into this movie. However, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask that a movie about the master of kung fu actually have at least one good kung fu fight scene in it. Now, I saw this movie with my dad, and he said he was actually pretty entertained by it, but then again, he doesn't like kung fu movies, so I think he was just relieved that this movie wasn't like those more cheesy Jackie Chan films I made him watch, but that's really all I'm going to say about this film. I'm not going to go too deep into anything else. I just wanted to gripe about how disappointed I was. Anyway, those are my thoughts. If you disagree with me and I mean, I don't know. Tell me why I'm a crotchety old man in the comments below, and I'll catch you next time.